Love, as I have loved you. What does that really mean? Sometimes it's hard to understand what Jesus meant when he said it, because in the world that we live in, people love us based on circumstance or preference. Like, if I like what you like, you'll like me. Or if I do what you do, you'll accept me. Yet the one that should have rejected me because I wasn't at all like him didn't. Matter of fact, in spite of my imperfections, failures, and flaws, Christ saw something in me that was worth reconciling back to him. So it's no longer I who live, but he who lives through me, and gives me the courage to fearlessly love you, despite what you do to me, or how you treat me, at my job, at my school, at my church, even in my own family. So let's not view each other in light of our earthly stature, but more as Christ's ambassadors, showing the world that we who are once blinded to this love have tasted this love and lived to share his love. I believe this, and only this, will help put an end to hate and animosity. It ain't no wishful thinking, man. It's his philosophy. And prayerfully, it's our democracy. That if we did, it would change everything.
Sometimes I think we fail to recognize the weight of Christ's sacrifice because of the state that sin puts us in. If we could see how dirty and how unworthy we are in comparison to how pure and how holy he has always been. If the wages of sin is death and I rebel against God one time, there's this mortal debt that I owe. And if God has set his face against sin, then that makes me his eternal foe. And our good God is actively fighting against anything that is bad, evil, or wrong. So what side of that board does your sin leave you on? And the wrath of God is coming, and there is no amount of good deeds that will ever save when you know that deep down you can't even get your heart to behave. You still struggle with your addictions to alcoholism and pornography. You're not satisfied with your singleness. You're tempted to step outside your marriage, and you don't even want to obey your parents. It's like no matter how good I try to be, I still find sin inside of me. And in our sin, we reject God and we smack him in the face, and we find anything else to take his place, and we stack sin on top of sin, on top of sin, on top of sin. But God in his mercy matches that with grace upon grace upon grace upon grace, when he would have been well within his means to leave you alone in the first place, to abandon you a long time ago. But God is not a man to demand what you would owe. Instead, he sends the King of this world as perfection, the great I am that I am, without spot or blemish, to become the perfect sacrificial lamb. And the nails of your rebellion were pounded into his hands and his feet on the cross. Our spiritual freedom don't come free. Yes, it comes at a cost. And the Son of God was crucified because of the sins that you chose. But 3 days later, my Savior, he rose, just to prove to the devil that death can't bother the author of life, and to show that the mess that man makes, Christ makes it right. Now we all know we're not perfect, but God stands up and says, no, my child, I still think you're worth it. Can we pause for a moment and think about what that means? That the King of Kings would love you more than anything. He says, I will give you my life so you can understand my love and how I have loved you from the very beginning. That's why I'm sending my son even though you keep sinning. That's why believers get excited at the mention of a third day, because our sins were flattened by the boulder that he rolled away. And the enemy is big mad because I ain't living the life that he made for me. And Jesus' death means new life that he gave to me. I was saved to see that death ain't got no grave for me. So when Jesus said it was finished, his work diminished the sins of my past through something that I can never add to. And a Jesus that died for my sins means that I will never have to. And if you're tracking with what I'm saying, then there's a question I gotta ask you. Do you believe what Jesus did for you, or have you allowed it to wash right over your head? Because the truth of Easter means that when you should have died, Jesus took that for you instead. Salah.
Greetings, my Israelite brothers and sisters, heirs, joint heirs, adopted, grafted, natural, spiritual. I hope that this night finds you all well. I'm certainly glad to be here in the midst of all of you all. It's still COVID-19. It's still peaceful demonstrations, I understand right now, so that's good. We're still in an economic situation and circumstance, so all of that is still going on. So nonetheless, what happens next? What now? That's going to be our topic tonight. What happens now? What's next? We're going to be talking about that, and that's going to be some of our subjects tonight. So I'm glad that you all are tuning in with us and that you're here with us, because that's some of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight. What happens now? What's next? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. What happens now? What's next? That's one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight. What happens now? What's next? What happens now? For y'all to give me some feedback on that. Brother Tobiah, I can hear you. Brother Rick, everybody says that's okay. All right, enjoying everybody. All right, Sister Thomasina Rory. How do we process this? Let's do some talking. We may go into some scriptures a little bit, but let's do some talking. As people of the book, as Hebrews, and one of the things that you don't want to do is get drawn in. Don't get drawn in as if you have to make an assessment on everything in the world that happens, okay? I will let you know, as an individual, been in public government for over 30 years, having a consulting firm for the past 5 years, an adjunct professor, and now gone back into public government. I always look at stuff. I'm always looking at news. I'm always looking at politics, history, just as a person of academia. I've always done that. That's just teaching public administration. I just can't help it. I can't help looking at how the Democrats and the Republicans and CNN and Fox, but in the reality, In a nutshell, I don't live under a rock. I sometimes would like to live under a rock, but I don't live under a rock. So the truth of the matter is, how do we as people of the book, how do we process everything that's going on? What happens now? What's next? And so let's dive into that. Keep in mind that we are in captivity. And when we're in captivity, one of the most difficult things it is to feel as if you have to engage yourself. Doesn't mean that you don't have to engage yourself. It just means you don't need to feel obligated in engaging yourself. And at the same time, you don't have to say, well, do we get involved? Do we not? Do I participate in these demonstrations or do I not? And so those are some questions and things we need to ask ourselves, and that I want to talk to my subscribers about, and how I feel that we should engage and interact and stuff like this. I share with you a true story. I was about 18 years old, and I wanted to go to school for computers. I really did. I really wanted to go to school for computers. I went to the University of Kentucky. They kicked me out after about a year and a half because I just wasn't a student. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared or anything like that. And it wasn't until later on in my latter years in life that I eventually went back to college. But here's the thing. Here's the point that I'm making. Because I was surrounded with people who were not as well informed. When I started to take up computers, I was told, "What are you doing? What are you doing? That's the mark of the beast." And I was told that by my youth pastor. That's the mark of the beast. What's wrong with you? And so I didn't know. My parents were not college students. And so church and ministries had a lot of influence on us back in those days. So I went and changed my major. And I was having a good time. I was learning Fortran. I was learning COBOL. We used to use these big index cards. They were almost like this right here. And they were like index cards, and you had to write your program, and they punch card them in, and you lay them on the machine. And I was really good. I was really good at it. And what ended up happening, because the instructor says to me, the professor at that time, he says, you're a natural at this. You're a natural. And but I was told that it was the work of Satan. So I went in and I changed my major to something that I didn't know anything about. I changed it to engineering and ended up flunking out. They kicked me out. They told me, do not come back. When I went to go register, they wouldn't let me register. It says, well, you can't register. You were put on academic probation. It was so bad, and I don't mind sharing this. I've told people before. When they put me on academic probation, they said, you're on academic probation. I thought it was because I had so many parking tickets on campus, right? Because I never looked at my report card. I never looked at it. I was just going, and I never looked at it. And then here I was on academic probation. Then the next semester, they says, okay, we're gonna put you on academic suspension. And so that was the first year. I went from academic probation to academic suspension. And then after that, I couldn't go. They told me I had to go to the community college for 2 years and then come back. Well, I ended up moving to Florida and the history from there. Here's the point that I'm making with this subject. You can't exclude yourself from society. You cannot exclude yourself. You can be in the world but not of the world. And what does that mean? Because some people look at this as if you're in the world and you have nothing to do with the world. Don't have nothing to do with the world. Get off grid. Don't do anything. Don't socialize. Don't speak. Get off completely off grid. And that, brothers and sisters, is not practical, nor is it biblical. It's not. It's not. It's not practical. It's not biblical for us to put ourselves in the position that we just say, it has nothing to do with me. I don't care. I'm not doing anything about it. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to do anything. And I'm going to give you some scriptures to bring this out to you tonight, because I really don't know how far I'm going with this at all. But my point that I'm making is that I want you to understand that it's incumbent upon you to be aware of what's happening. Sister Nancy, glad you're in the room. I apologize for this morning. So it's incumbent upon us to realize that we can't exclude ourselves from the world. We can't say, I'm not having nothing to do with anything. Now, do you vote? Some people say, well, does that mean we can vote? Should we vote? Do we not vote? I'm going to tell you this. That's a personal decision. It's really a personal decision if you get politically involved. It really is. It's up to you. I can show you numbers of occasions why you should. Now, I will not vote in this presidential election. And I'm not afraid to tell anybody. I voted in one presidential election in my lifetime. And I wish I never did it, but I did. So I leave that like that. My point is that because we exclude ourselves and we become this group, or we can become this group, that it has nothing, don't get involved with the world. Getting involved with the world means that you don't become like the world. Doesn't mean that you don't care about issues and circumstances and policies and the George Floyds and the Ahmaud Arbery's, and it doesn't mean that we ignore those things as to what happens. We should be consciously aware, and we may be asked to get involved. We may have to do that. What does the scripture say about that? And I'm asking you all in the scriptures, in the chat room, what is your viewpoint? I want to see some of your viewpoints. Do you all know of anybody in the scriptures that worked for the government? Anybody? I'm just curious. Do you know of anybody in the scriptures that worked for the government? Because I've worked in public government, like I said, in 30 years, over 30 years, and I'm retired from the public government. It's one of the best things I've done. And notice I said one of the best. It's not the best thing. It's one of the best things that I've done, and it does. So that's my question. Do we get involved with how engaged do you think that we should or should not be? And I want to hear from you in the chat room what you think. What happened to my reader? I miss him. Brother JD will be here this Friday night. Brother JD took a break. He need, this is hard stuff, people. It takes a big commitment, and every Friday night. Sometimes I want to take a break. I can't because I'm committed to this, and I'm committed because whenever people financially support what you're doing, you're obligated. And, you're obligated. And because many of you financially support this channel, I'm obligated to be here. Brother JD volunteered to help, and he needed a break. Brother said, I need a break, Pass. I just need, and so he'll be back. I told him to, I told him to take another week off if he wants. But he says, no, I'll be back. I just needed to take a little sabbatical. So, Faith and Hope says tax collector is not part. Well, who was the tax collector? Was one of the disciples was a tax collector. So who was that? So my question is it okay to get politically? I'm not saying that you have to run for an office. I'm just saying, is it okay to be consciously aware of what's happening in the world? Or do when we come into the truth, we just say, I don't have nothing to do with it anymore? That's what my question is. That's what I want to know. We give you permission to take a break, Pastor. I know you all do, but the Most High, I better have a good reason. I better have a very good reason. The elders of the nations, would that not be a part of governing? And by the way, it was Luke. Luke was not Luke, Mark. I believe Luke was a physician. I believe Mark was a tax collector. I believe it was Mark. Daniel. Let's go to the book of Daniel. And I want to show you something. Now, I did not plan on going into the scriptures tonight, but I need to set myself up for it, so you all give me a minute here. I have to find it. Let me see if I... Okay, give me a minute, because we're going to go into the scriptures just for a second. I just wanted to kind of bring that out for a minute, okay? Give me a minute. I'm gonna go in. Well, actually, I can just go into it. I don't need to be there. Let me see. I'm looking for the one that says Bible. And I have these little scenes set up, and I had one called Bible. And if I ever go into the Bible, it should be there. And I thought it was there, and I don't see it. There it is. Right here. I got to bring it all the way up. Come on up. All right, let's see if we can find you all there, okay? So let's go over to the Bible. right, that was Queen Cleo telling me, she called me to say, hey, Pastor, we cannot hear you. Nobody in the chat room can hear you. Thank y'all for calling me on that, because I did not see anybody in here at all. So that's what she was calling me to let me know. So I think I got that fixed. Thank you all. Thank you all for letting me know that. Where am I going to go at right now? I want to go back and read the scripture. If you can hear me now, give me, now we can hear. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Can y'all hear me now? Good. I know what happened. I know exactly what happened. Okay. All right. So, in the book of Daniel, what I was bringing out in the book of Daniel, I wanted you all to see that Daniel started to work for the king. That's the part that I was getting ready to show you in the room, that Daniel started to work for the king. I'm going to lock this up so we can get it. How you doing, Terrell, Coach? Good. So, you all remember the story. Daniel told the king the dream. But in particular, where I want to go at now is the very next chapter, okay? Because you all remember this story in the book of Daniel. But now I want to go to the very next chapter, because you all remember when Daniel got in a little trouble. And he got into a little trouble, and I want to go into that. I want to read that. Chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 3 cubits, and the breadth thereof. Now, they made this because Daniel is now in a position. Why was Daniel in a good position? Daniel was in a good position because of what happened in the earlier chapter. Okay? Now listen to this. Nebuchadnezzar the king set together the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Okay? Now, when you go back over here to the second chapter, and I'm going to go back and look at that so y'all can see that. Back over here in this chapter, Daniel tells him the dream. Now when you get to the third chapter, Daniel got a little favor. He got a little clout in the third chapter. Okay? And all of these people in verse 3, look at where they are now. So they said, hey, listen, let's have a decree, and whoever does not bow down, in verse 11, whosoever falleth not down in worship, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over, listen to this, there are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. Who were those individuals? Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Okay? So these three individuals right here, these three Hebrew boys, if you go back over here to the second chapter of Daniel, I'm going to go back over here and just kind of bring something out. When Daniel was, when Arioch in verse number 13, and the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. And then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is this decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. And you all know the story from there. Daniel went in and he went into his house. Now look here. He made the thing known in verse 17. Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions. Okay? You get to the 3rd chapter, those same individuals, because they wouldn't hear when Daniel went to his companions, what did they do? That they would be desired mercies of God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the secret was revealed unto Daniel in a night dream in verse number 19. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. So now, because God gave him the answer to the dream. But here, when we go back down to verse number 12 in the very next chapter, there are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. Okay? And they got in trouble. They got in trouble. Okay? This is not the only place that happened. You all know the story, the 3 Hebrew boys, as they call it, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. By the way, that was not their real names. Those were the names given to them. Let's go over to, look at that last verse here. The king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the providence of Babylon, because what happened was they got promoted. And they ended up being delivered. And they came out of the fiery furnace. But look what the king does. He realized that he was tricked into this, and they got promoted. So what am I saying here? I'm saying here there are people who worked for the government. There were Hebrews who worked for the government. You remember Joseph over in the book of Genesis? In the book of Genesis, Joseph worked for the government. That's what he did. He worked right. He was there. He was in prison, and then when he came out, he was able to interpret the dream, and as a result of that dream, he was put in command. Joseph was put in command, and being in that position, he was able to help his people. So the question I have, and I'm going to go back to the chat room. Thank you all for letting me know. Thank you for hanging in here and being patient with me. And I apologize that I was not aware that my voice was out. Sister Cheryl says, there is no hedge put around Israel now for disobedience to the Most High. So I don't get involved in politics or in riots because strife between people. And that's, I want to hear, what is it that you do? Do you not? So this is the discussion that I want to have here. What happens now? What's next? What happens now? That's all. Do you get involved? Do you not get involved? And let me say this. It was because of Daniel's favor, Daniel's involvement, that he was able to change the diet of the other Hebrew slaves. It was because of Joseph's position in Egypt with the Pharaoh that he was able to secure and feed his entire family. So I'm throwing this out there because I want to see where your mind is. Do we ignore what happens around us? Do we hide under a rock? Do we just go to our jobs and come home and shut the door and act like the police are not killing people? Do we not become activists? That's what I want to know. I want to know where you are tonight. I want to know where your mindset is with this stuff like this, and I'm curious. I'm curious. So what I brought up is I brought up the fact that Daniel worked for the government. The 3 Hebrew boys worked for the government. I want to bring up Nehemiah. Nehemiah was a cupbearer. And it was because of Nehemiah's position, he got a grant from the government. He got a government grant, is what he got. And that government grant, he got a letter. You go back and you can build. And he says, here is a letter from Artaxerxes. If anybody that's Hebrew that wants to go and build, let them build. Because Nehemiah had a countenance on his face, and he was able to go back and build, and got a grant that every place he went through, every kingdom that he went through, and they said, listen, help this brother, give him some money, give him some material, whatever you can do, because I, as being over everybody, I'm allowing this guy to go. So that's what I'm asking. I want to know where you are with it. I got one person so far that says, no, I don't get involved. Sister Faith and Hope says, no, we do need to condemn the police crimes, but are we not to sin in our anger? Absolutely. You know, no matter what we do, Scripture says, be angry and sin not. But what level? You know, we can sit back and say, well, you know, I'm not going to get involved because I feel that we're under captivity, and being in captivity, we should not get involved. It's nothing we can do. We're just going to wait on the Most High to return. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's wrong. I just want to know, what are your thoughts? That's where I'm at. I want to know, what are your thoughts? It's not our people causing destruction. It's the infiltrators who are doing this. Sister Faith says yes. She feels that maybe we should get involved. Brother Carl, I want to know how you feel. I really want to know how you all feel. And there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. I'm just curious as to what is our mindsets when it comes to stuff that becomes social awareness issues. What stance, what position is our involvement? Do we get involved? Do we not get involved as people of the book? That's what that's the question that I'm asking tonight, because this is a good discussion talking about what happens next. Now what? Okay? And let me just bring this out. The reason why I said now what is this? Because this is going to die down. Okay? This will die down. Okay? Everybody's not going to be demonstrating every day. Okay? They're not. Now, let me say this. Some people choose to live off-grid. What I mean by off-grid, there are groups that says, you know, we're not going to get involved with this government. We're not going to vote. We're not going to look at what the presidents and everybody, I'm trying to think some of the comments that I hear that people say they're not doing. We're not touching that. It's not for us. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. I can't draw a conclusion one way on it or another. I just can't. To say that's right or wrong. For people to live, there are some people to say, you know what, we're all gonna get a big farm, and we're gonna go live there and live, and we're gonna get away from this world, this wicked world, this wicked world. I will say this: you cannot hide from the tribulation which is going to come. You cannot hide from this world. You cannot hide from being persecuted. You can live down the street in the worst community. Crime can be high, and you can have a hedge around your you can have a hedge of protection around you. I mean, I know you can. You can. Not one thing will come upon you because you have a hedge of protection around you. And then you could live in the safest community, perceivably in your mind, in a gated community, and all hell can break loose. If just because you're not living in the will of the Most High. So that's my question. I'm still looking over here. Anthony says, I honestly don't get involved. I support them, but movement without being in the line. Okay? Thank you, Anthony, for that comment. Faith and Hope says, speak out and condemn the wrong. Okay? Queen Cleo says, I don't, Pastor, because it's too much hatred going on around. They get mad when you don't want to march or protest, but nothing will change for the Hebrews until they repent and return back. Thank you, Sister Queen. Short Hepburn says, I'm not getting involved because there is no hedge around Israel now, but in Nehemiah, Daniel, and Joseph, there was a hedge of protection, his people in those high offices for his purposes. Yes, that is the answer and the response. That's the road I want to go down. That's the exact road I want to go down. There will be times and occasions that when the Almighty wants to do something for his people, he always puts somebody in the right position to facilitate the good that he wants for his people. And throughout Bible history, we find that. If Nehemiah, excuse me for yawning, I don't know where that came from. If Nehemiah was not the cupbearer, he would have never got a grant from the other presidents and rulers in the region in which he traveled. If he was not the cupbearer. If Daniel was not in his position, if Joseph was not in his position, so I told you all I went back to work for a number of reasons. Number one, I felt I have an expense account from our ministry. I do not take a salary, okay? And it's a very small expense account, and I use it. I use it to do various things. There's some youth that I pay out of my expense account because I want to help them. There's certain things they do every month. I'd say, hey, I need you to do this and do that. I need you to keep the grounds clean. And I help them. There's other things that I do. There's things that I'm able to do and buy for the ministry, but it's not a salary. I don't get a salary. I could, some people do, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. Don't take it that way. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I choose not to. However, there's a lot of things I like to do. And so I went back to work. Although I am retired and I'm comfortable. But I wanted to embark on social media ministry. It's not something that the church wanted to do. It's something I wanted to do as a pastor. Now that I'm doing it, the church does benefit. And now the church supports what I need to do. So if my computer took a crash and it's important that I do social media ministry, and a good computer will cost $4,000. And I said, hey, I need the church to help me with $2,000. Can you help me? I'm sure they would. And I'm going to pay for half. But it's that half, or it's that 80% that I want to pay for. And that's one of the reasons why I went back to work. Because to do what we're doing, to do what I'm doing, it costs. It costs. It really does. One of these days, I'm going to show you all, because many of you all support this social media ministry, but you can see some of the things that I do and I have, and I have a mixing board right here. I got a mixing board right here that I have in front of me. I have microphones, lights, and I try to put out a good quality. But I went back to work, is where I'm going at. And consulting was good, but I went back to work into public government. Now let me tell you this. One of the things that I've always done when I was in public government and in positions of management, I always made sure that people coming into the truth got jobs and they got their Sabbaths off, because I could make those type of calls. And I've helped a lot of people. And I still will do it today because I'm in that position. And if it's not where I'm working at, because of my contacts, I'll reach out to somebody else. For the past month, because of where I'm at, I'm able to get food for the members in our congregation that needs it. But it's being in that position that allows me to do that. You follow me what I'm saying? So just like Joseph was in a position to help his family. Daniel was in a position to help the Hebrews get approved to change their diet. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting involved, and there's nothing that indicates that you have to. You don't have to. But whenever I know that whenever I can come across any type of governmental resource to help our people, that's what I try to do. And that's it. Brother Carl says, Faith and Hope says, marching is not. We need to boycott. Financial is the only thing that gets their attention. Brother Carl says, we need to address the issue and try to move forward. Sister Barbara says, I support a cause by giving or petitions. Okay? Very interesting. Let me see who else we have here. Sister Pam says, what did Esther do for the people? Well, Esther was in a position in the government to help her people. That's what she was able to do. Who is there to vote for? Two evils. And you know what? That's one reason why I don't vote. There's a number of reasons why I don't vote, but that sounds like a good one. Brother Roderick says, I feel we should have a voice, speak out against all the injustice, but not to condone or get involved in the violence and destruction. I agree with that. I really do. Faith and Hope says she agrees with Rodney. Sister Pam says yes. I think I answered that question. She says, what did Esther do for the people? Anthony J. said, this government is not ours. Our government is in the Most High and given to us as long as we focus on Him. He will take care of us. All of this is to show us we cannot do it without Him. I agree with that. I agree with that also. No one will steal His glory. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I don't think any involvement on our part will completely do away with the racism or police brutality, but just maybe some involvement, be it government positions, protesting, activists, and what have you. Very good. Very good. Sister Kimberly says some of the pressure, talking about relieving, adding to what she had indicated. She says some of that stuff of that involvement, let me go back to say what she said and put it all together. She says, I don't think any involvement on our part will completely do away with the racism or police brutality, but maybe some involvement, be it government positions, protesting, or activists, will alleviate, she says, some of the pressure. Sister Cheryl says, my voice is to sing praises to the Most High and voice no opinion of right and wrong, but I do sigh and cry over the spiritual condition of Israel. Somebody agrees with Brother Anthony. Sister Pam says yes, just like Esther. So you all have given some very good comments. Sister Kelly Ming says in Romans the 13th chapter, verse 13, we are not supposed to do any of those things. I'm going to go read that. Sister Pam, what's amazing, Pastor Johnson? She said, that's amazing. Thank you. Praises to the Most High. I agree, Pastor. I promise myself never to get involved anymore. Sister Cheryl said, that's why we have Brother Bowie and the Israel God and many brothers' organizations trying to educate Hebrews about the condition is our involvement. That is, in other words, she's saying that is our involvement. We cannot avoid involvement to a certain degree. Some of us do work for the government. I think things were different for Joseph, Shadrach, Meshach, because they were in captivity and compelled to exercise such function. Such was the case of our near ancestors in slavery, if called. She says, if called, yes. Faith and Hope, I work for the city. That does not make me less of an Israelite. No, it doesn't. Very good point. I even changed my party affiliation to NA, not affiliate. That way, no party will call me to try to get my support. Sister Marie says, Brother Tobias says, our votes don't count anyway. Both the wings is on the same unclean bird. Pray that the Most High soften theirs hearts. So let me say this. Let me say this to you. The best way to answer and to respond to this. And I want to read Romans 13 and 13 first. I want to go read that scripture that our sister brought out. Romans 13 and 13. So let's go up here. I want to read that. Romans 13 and 13. And this is what it says. Let us walk honestly as the day, not in rioting or drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying. Okay. Okay. Very good point. Very good point. But let's talk about in the context of what this is talking about. And I agree. We should not get involved at that level where we're out there rioting and we're out there fighting. We shouldn't. At what level of politics, political government, do you get involved? And let me just share this with you because a lot of you had a lot of great comments in the room tonight. Here's my level. My involvement with the government is to get involved in such a way that I can put myself in a position to help others. That's it. That's it. I don't get involved with policy making. I teach policy making. I teach it. I teach people how to make policy and how the policy process. I teach that so people, and I know the policy process. But whatever I can do to help our people, that's when I get involved. And I'll give you an example. I live in a community and I pay attention to what's going on. If they say that they're going to raise taxes because they want to have a bond is where it's not taxes. It's taxes, but it's a little different. So let's say that they want to build a brand new park, a new library, they want to build a new city hall, and they want to build a new fire department and whatever. And the city doesn't have the money. So they said, well, we want to vote for a bond, B-O-N-D. And if people agree to it, it will be 2% of their property value. Or in some cases, it could be 5%. So if your home is worth $300,000, 5% of that is $1,500. Okay? I believe that's what it is. Let me do my math. I'm not quite for sure. I know how to do the calculation, but let me just make sure. These are things that you should just be aware of because they do bonds. So 300,000 times 15%. No, is it that much? Wow. And I said 15%. It's not 15%. I meant to say 3%. 3%. That's still a lot of money. I'm still not doing that work right. 100 times 10% equals $10, right? So I got that right. So $1,000 times 10% is $100, right? Should have that right. I think I got that right. And the reason why I do this at work sometimes. It's $100. So yeah. So 10% of 300,000 or 3% is 3,000. I believe it should be 300,000 times 3%. Yes, it's $9,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Here's how bonds work. And they're not quite 3%. It could be 0.5%, right? So if you have a house that's worth $300,000, they'll go times 0.5%, and you would pay $1,500 a year. That's what it is. So there are some bonds. They said, we want every resident to help with this police station. And if they put it on the voting ballot, that they want a new police station, they want a new library, they want a new fire department, they want a new city hall, and it's going to cost every resident 0.5% of their value of their home over the next 10 years. That means your house note just went up $100 a month. I'm not going for it. I'm going to go out and look at the police department, I'm a fire department, city. I'm going to see what it looks like before I let you tax me an extra $100 a month. Okay? Some cases it could be as much as 1%. Okay? And if it's 0.5, that means it's $3,000 a year. And that could be $200 a month. Do you want your mortgage to go up $200 a month? And you can go over and say, well, what's wrong with these parks? Just don't build a new park. Won't you just renovate the equipment? Won't you renovate City Hall? We don't need a new City Hall. So if you don't get involved, you can find yourself paying for something that you kept silent on, and maybe you should have went in there and said something. Okay, so those are the kind of things I'm talking about. When I first came across the Israel of God in Riverdale was building the Israel of God was building on land that was in Riverdale. And when I started to do my research on the Israel of God, because this is before I was really involved, but I liked the organization. I liked what Pastor Bowie was doing, and I wanted to study up on it. So I did a Google search. And what happened was they were buying property that at one time was a tax. It was a tax revenue property. It was a very large piece of property that they have, and it was worth taxes every year. But being that a nonprofit purchased the land, they was totally against it. The city council. So now you got to get involved, and you got to get politically involved, and you got to get a lobbyist to go in there and speak on your behalf. So there are times and occasions, which is why I said thank you for that. There are times and occasions that you will have to get involved. There are certain times and occasions that you will need to engage. But let your engagement and your involvement be at a level where it's going to either help you or those that are in the community. That's what it is. Other than that, I don't get involved. I'm not going to go in there and say, I don't like the dog catcher. I don't care who the dog catcher is. And I don't care if you come up with, we want to come up with another law that in order to get a dog, your dog has to have certain shots, and we want to make that a city or county ordinance. I'm not voting on that. I'm not getting involved. I have no interest in that. But if it's an issue that affects our people and you individually, then you need to be vocally prepared to get involved. You need to go to a council meeting. You need to speak up. You really do. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with putting your petition before the government. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Now, do I go out and follow and monitor everything that's going on? No, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that because it's helping someone else. It's not helping my cause. Okay? And right now, my cause is to preach this gospel into the four corners of the earth. But now, if somebody says, "Hey, we got a bill that we're going to be putting up that we want to ban Bibles in public places," well, guess what? I'm going right in there, and I'm going to tell no, and I'm going to get some signatures, and I'm going to go in there and deal with that. You're not going to ban me from carrying a Bible. at least without me not fighting for it. So I'm going to go in there and fight for it. So, yes, we do get involved. There's nothing wrong with getting involved as long as it's for the benefit of you or our people. The government needs to have a forum between the people and the government so viewpoints can and will be heard. Very good point. I like that. Let me say this. One of the things, thank you, Kelly. None, because it literally does not count when we vote. People are selected, not elected. So we would be able to choose either to be official, not choose from the lesser of two evils. Yeah, you will be choosing from the lesser of two evils. Stone them. Just joking. When it happens to you or someone else close to you, I personally know it makes you think of all kinds of bad thoughts. Me being in Florida, I felt it was better. It was better ways to help. I don't work every day to be a better person individually for me and my kids. I work every day to be a better person. Let me say something else that I got involved in, and it worked out. So, where our church is located, they have a what they call a community redevelopment zone. What they call an empowerment zone. It was a zone that had boundaries. It was within a certain amount of blocks and streets, and they were picking the zone. And when I found out that our congregation was not going to be in that zone, I knew the issue, and I went in there and I vocally told them my opinion. And as a result, the commissioners listened to me and other people, and they broadened the redevelopment zone to include the address at our congregation. And let me tell you what that did. That did a whole lot. Number one, when grant money came available, as a congregation, we were able to go in there and get a forgiveness loan. And we got it. We applied, got it, and I think we got, I forgot how much money, like $75,000 or $100,000. And we went in and we put in brand new bathrooms. We brought our electric at our congregation up to code. This was several years ago, about 10, 15 years ago. And we brought everything up to code. We put in storm impact windows for hurricanes, so we don't have to put up shutters. We put in storm impact windows. We brought the electric up to code, put in brand new bathrooms, dooring, flooring, all of that. But that was because we got politically involved. So that's why I say you should do it when it benefits you or our other brothers and sisters. If it benefits, now, I just don't believe in selecting a president. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying that's up to you. I'll leave it like that. That's strictly up to you. I can understand from that statement. There are good causes to support, like the right to life. Absolutely. Here's another thing that I got politically involved in. There was a petition, and some individuals came to me and they said, Pastor Johnson, we need your help. And I said, okay. They wanted to have a meeting, and we met. And they said, listen, we know that you know public government. And we want to know if you could help us think about how do we handle certain things? How do we lobby? And how does lobbying work? And when they meant by lobbying, you hire a lobbyist who will go in and speak to politicians to get them to vote on your issue. And they said, how do we help our community? And one of the things that I had brought up, and they wanted me to rate things from high to low. And one of the things that was on there was, if you have been arrested before, and if you serve your prison time and you come out, you're not going to get a job if you tell somebody you've been in prison. So the question that I brought up was, I would support if you all can get and enact a law that says that question has an adverse impact on a specified group of people. And they says, well, what do you mean by that? I says, well, we're what, barely over 15% of the population. Barely over 15% of the population, but yet we occupy 60% of the people that occupy prisons is our people. Something's wrong with that. And what's even wrong is that when we get out, there's a question on applications. Have you ever been convicted? And right off the bat, they're not going to hire you. They're not going to hire you. I know someone that got themselves in a position and they got a job. And then after getting that job, like most, they were told, we got to let you go because you didn't put on your application that you have a prior criminal record. So when this group came, I says, we need to change that legislation. So they did a petition, they started the petition, they took it around. I said, you got to get every pastor in every congregation to sign this. You have to go to shopping centers, get the signatures, because those signatures are votes, and give it to a representative, a state representative, and tell them this is what people want, and make them push it for you. And it's supposed to be on the agenda in the state of Florida that question needs to come off of applications. And here's why. If you were convicted and you're no longer incarcerated, what difference does it make? I mean, why do you want to know? What would that have to? What does that have to do with me doing my job? If you hire me to work in a warehouse, if you hire me to drive a truck, if you hire me to dig in a ditch, okay? What answer to that question, or what my response is to that question? Evaluate me some other way, because it doesn't say if you've been convicted in the past 5 years. It doesn't say have you served or when did you serve. It's very specific. It asks you a question because it's another way to exclude you or I or people in our community from getting a job, because that's what they're doing. Okay, so you have to get involved with that, because it could further the opportunities for people in our specific congregations and neighborhoods. So you have to get involved. And I think something like that, there's nothing wrong with getting involved. Somebody says, yes, that is true. Yes, truth. Yes. Faith and Hope says, singing petitions demanding the government to do something about the persecution of Christians, kidnapping girls, and marriage. Lots of things we can do that the Most High would approve, I think. And that's where I'm going at with this. I think that there are things that we could do without getting politically involved. You know what I mean? Without getting politically involved. Like, I'm not going to get a part of a campaign that's adversarial. There's There's a young man I know. We met here in South Florida, and he's running for judge. And I said, "Yeah, I support you, man. I'll tell people about you, and I will support you, and I will." Okay, but now I'm not going to go certain things above that. I'm not going to do. I'm not going to do because it doesn't affect me, and it doesn't affect the furtherance of our people. So I don't care to do it. I don't care what high rise goes downtown. I don't care if the football stadium is going to be, if the county can own it or does it stay privately owned. I could care 2 cents in those cases like that, and I'm not getting involved. When it comes to social injustices, or areas of social injustices, we need to get involved. We really do, and there's nothing wrong with getting involved. And I think that we should step up and let people know, wait a minute, we're not supporting that. And so when the petitions came out, the ladies came to this organization came, I was able to give them some feedback. We got the petition signed, we got through, and I believe it was either up in February or it's going to come up in November, but I hope that they're successful. I talked about the empowerment zone that I went to City Hall and said, hey, you need to include this area. Well, another thing that happened was there was money for housing that came in that area. And we were able to help people with the first-time homebuyer program. So there are occasions living under a rock would not be beneficial to having opportunities for our people. Even if that's where you are, you need to be, you need to do something that you can help your community. And sometimes helping and uplifting your community means you may have to become active. That's what an activist is an activist. They say, I'm a community activist. You may have to become active. And what is the application process? What's the approval criteria? Things like that, you may have to get involved. You can't sit back when it's too late. And you could have had a voice. So there are certain occasions we need to exercise having a voice at the table. We really do. I'm going back over into the chat room. I agree on the pastor. Thank you, Brother Tobiah. Praises to the Most High. These are the things I petition for. Thank you, Sister Barbara. Absolutely. And we have to. Sadek Ben Israel, another tool of systematic racism, Pastor. Yeah, and let me tell you, there is systemic racism that we could perhaps change, such as that application process that I brought up. Let me tell you this, true story. There was a guy, and when I say true story, it's unbelievably, but it's a true story. Not that I would bring you an untruth story, but this policy, when I say true story, is actually in place, and I didn't know anything about it. So we were at the congregation, myself and 2 other men. We were putting in some plants, and a guy walks by, and I felt led and inspired to speak to him and say something to him. And so we were in front, he walks by, and I said, praise the Lord, my brother, how you doing? He says, I'm doing good. Keep your head up, brother. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. And stop in and see us sometimes. And he said, like this. He didn't say nothing, he just like this. So he walks down the street, he goes to the corner, he makes a left, he continues to go down the street, and he walked inside, and he was going to rob the store. He was going to rob the store. He decides not to. And he comes back, and he says, "Brothers, how y'all doing? Can I speak with you?" And I said, "Yeah, come on over." He said, "I see you all putting in plants." And he introduced himself, and he says, "When you spoke to me, I don't know what happened. I don't know. I suddenly had a change of heart. You spoke to me, and when you said, 'Hey man, how you doing?' you felt genuine. I felt like it was genuine. I felt like somebody cared about me." And he says, "I was getting ready to rob the store, but what I'm asking is, I need $75. Can you all let me do this work that you're doing? And I promise you I'll do a good job. I'll sweep up everything. I'll blow. Let me paint. Let me put in the plants." And he said, "Because I'm going through hard times right now, and I'd rather work for the $75 than go rob it." So right away, my treasurer, who's deceased, he was the treasurer at that time, you can tell him he was holding the shovel like a baseball bat, and he had it going across his shoulder, and he was just kept putting it down, holding it up, putting it down, and he was ready to swing it like a bat. And so I said, "Well, tell me, brother," here's the part that's unbelievable, by the way. I says, "Why were you going to rob the store? What kind of issues are you going through?" And he says to me, this was on a Friday, because we wanted to have the plants in before the Sabbath so people would see them the next day. He says to me, this is what was unbelievable. This is why he wanted to rob the store. He says, "I am on probation. I did my time. I'm on probation. And if I don't pay my probation officer $75 by Monday morning, she's going to violate my parole, and I'm going back to jail." And I stopped and I said, "Are they blackmailing you or something?" He says, No. This is for restitution to the government." I said, "Oh, because he told me he got out of jail." And I says, "Oh, so you did property damage or something, they make you pay it back?" He said, No. I got to pay the government restitution because I did 60 months. And I got to pay them back for being in the jail for 60 months, 5 months. And he says, "And if I don't, by a certain date, then when I get out of jail, it will violate my parole, and I got to go back and serve my time." And I said, something don't sound right with that. I said, "The government don't charge you for being in jail." He says, "Yeah, it's a new law. It's a new state law that they can charge you every day for being in that bed." I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him. I said, "Man, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I think your probation officer or your parole officer is taking money from you." He says, "No, sir, Pastor. I need the $75. And you don't have to give me the money. I trust you that you would take it downtown on my behalf, but it's got to be there at 9 o'clock. You don't give me the money." And I says, How much did you owe them? He said, well, it was $3,500. I said, $3,500? They charge you $3,500 for serving time the past 5 months that my tax dollars paid for? He said, that's the way it is. And I said, why is it that you only owe $75? He said, oh, because I was working. I had a good job. Man, I had a good job, and I was working there for about 4 months. And I was paying my rent to my mother. I was helping her out, and I was sending my probation officer money every month. I was sending her, like, because I owed that money, I was sending almost $1,000 a month. I said, wow, because he said, although I had some time, I lost time because I could not get a job because I had a criminal record. And I said, okay, but why don't you just tell them you have a job and you need time to pay the $75? He said, because I got fired a month ago and I haven't been able to find a job. I said, oh. So the treasurer says, well, why did you get fired? I mean, what did you do to get fired? He said, I didn't do anything. He says, let me roll the time back. When I first got out of jail, I would put on an application that they asked me if I've ever been convicted of a crime. And I told them yes. And they wouldn't hire me. And then when I put down no, I got hired. And so things was looking up. And I was going in there and I was working. I had to be at work at 7. I was there at 6:45. I got off at 4:30. I didn't leave till 4:45, sometimes 5 o'clock. I would just start to, make sure everything was straight. He worked at a warehouse. And he said, the bosses loved me, everybody loved me. And then after several months, they called me in. And they told me, they said, hey, you do a good job here. You do very well. Everybody likes you. You show up on time. But you lied on your application. Why did you lie on your application? And he looked at him and he was crying. He says, you wouldn't have hired me. They says, but you don't know that. You can't lie on your application. It's an automatic. And so they did his background. They delayed doing his background. And they fired him. Well, he paid everything. But because it took him a while to get the job, the probation officers had already extended, and she finally told him, if you don't bring in that money by Monday, I'll give you to a certain time. If it's not here, I got to violate you. I picked up the phone. I had the $75. I had it. He worked. I didn't give him the money. The next morning, I called the probation officer. He gave me the number. I called. It was a legitimate number. I called. I left a message, because I left a message for the probation officer, and I told him where I was, and I says, I have the money for this individual. I'm going to come down and pay it. Can you please call me? And about 20, 30 minutes, they called me up, and I says, listen, I asked them if this was true, and they said, oh, yeah, that's it's restitution. That was a law that was passed, and it's called restitution. When you serve time, you got to pay the court, you got to pay the system back restitution for taking, they call it bed space. And I said, but how do you expect these guys to get a job if they put down on the application and then nobody's going to hire them, and when they lie about it, they find out? Well, I understand that's just the rule. So did he tell, and she's like justifying herself. Well, did he tell you that I gave him 3 extensions? I said, yes, but $75, you would actually put him in jail because he, out of $3,000 some odd dollars, he's $75 off. That's not me. I got an extension. He got the extension. I'm not paying the $75 for him. And to be quite frank, Mr. Johnson, if you're not here within the next hour, I got to violate him. So I went downtown. Well, she told me I can pay online, so I paid it online. Now, these are things we have to change. So those are the type of issues that we have to get involved with. And you have to go in and you may have to say, I'm not voting for that law to pass. Okay? So that, brothers and sisters, shocked the heck out of me. I said, how can these guys get a chance? They can't get a chance under those systems. So I help push an agenda, and I'm going to help push it on a national level, that you need to quit asking people on an application what color they are, and you need to quit asking if they ever have been arrested or have they ever served time. Those are questions that you are singling me out. When I mean me, our people. And when you do that, you're not going to give us a job, because I believe that young man, by getting him a job, we can help him. And let me tell you, there's a young man that we had to do that for. And he was a homeless guy coming to church every week. And he was homeless, and we at Bethel, we feed everybody. So if you come, we're going to feed you. Every Sabbath, we provide some sort of sandwiches, food, something. We're going to feed everybody that comes to service. And those, if we have food left over, if people come in and they say, hey, can I eat? Because we fed them that morning or something, we say yes. This guy was coming every Sabbath, doing very well. And he had gotten out, and he kept getting jobs. He would lie on applications so he can get the job. They would find out, they would fire him. And he'll do this over and over again. And then he had that restitution thing that I told you about. Well, he got over the hump on that because he lied. They gave him the job. He had to pay like $5,000. His was a little bit higher. But he told me he lied, got 2 jobs. He was only getting 5 hours of sleep. But he knew it was a matter of time before they found out. And they did. And they fired him. But he got that monkey off his back. Paid everything. And then all of a sudden, he was using the address of someone who said, yeah, you can get your mail here. So his probation officer came to go check on it. And the people moved. Well, a part of his probation is that you got to have a place to live. You can't be homeless. And unless you're enrolled in a shelter. He couldn't get inside of a shelter. And so he asked me if he could receive mail at one of our buildings on our property. So I said, yeah, you can. He says, can I put my address down? And he did. Well, one day the probation officer came looking for him, knocking on the door. And I answered the door. I was at the office. I was getting ready to do Bible study on a Wednesday. And they were looking for him. And I said, well, he's not here. Well, when will you see him? I don't know. That was my line of question. I don't know. Is there anything I could help you with? Well, I'm his probation officer. I said, okay. I says, well, give me your number and I'll let him know when I see him. Well, will you see him tonight? And I says, I'm not for sure. So I was new not to give so much questions and answers. Well, long story short, he came and said, Pastor, if you can help me, get a place to stay. And he was working. He was working. So you know what we did? I told him, because we had a room in the back, you can live here. Tears coming down a grown man's eyes. Tears. And I only knew the guy from just coming to church. But I felt like he was genuine. And he told me, here's my social security, here's my driver's license. He was out of state, but he'd been there for a while. And he says, man, I'm telling you, Pastor, I really, really appreciate this. Man, I was a good guy. And he told me, he says, I was in the music industry. And of course, everybody's in the music industry. And I just went on and listened to him. Yeah, okay. He says, I wrote for this person and that person. And I never verified anything. He just told me I just got involved. I started using drugs, and then I started stealing to help me supply my habit. I came out, and I'm a good guy. I don't hurt people, man. I just need a chance. That's all I need is a chance. And I'm going to bring him on the channel. I told him I was going to bring him on the channel to just his testimony. And let me tell you, we helped him. We opened up the doors. We helped him. We really helped him. And he's been there for about almost 2 years now. Keeps the property clean. He and he got off probation. He got a new probation officer to get permanently off of probation. He had to transfer over. And I met them. And they came and they says, we want him to, we haven't seen this. He's a success story. And he was a success story. They asked him to be the guest speaker in this graduation that they had from getting off of the system. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I did a letter for him, and they now have him come and ask him, what do you think about this program, that program? Do you think this will help you all? And stuff like that. And but he's a good brother. He's a good brother. And that's his job. He stays there for free, but he keeps the property, par, he keeps it clean and stuff like that. But because he had no place, he was going to go back to jail. And he tells me, he says, Pastor, do you know how many people come out, and if they could simply get a job and a place to live and something to do, if somebody just gave them a chance, we go back to jail because we get in a position that we can't pay that restitution. And we, at the last dime, at the last moment, a lot of people will go snatch a purse, rob a store, rob a corner store, as he put it, snatch a purse, break into something to get the money to give to the probation officer before their deadline. And they get caught. They get caught. They go right back for violating their probation for doing a crime. But a lot of people don't want to do that. And I asked him, I said, well, what can we do? He said, we got to change the system. These are laws. So I started doing research. These are laws. And you know who put these laws? Oh, man. Oh, my God. I can't even. I'm not going to go into this long discussion because I'll get angry about it. I really will. And I'm going to come on. I'm going to come on tomorrow night. I'm going to share this with you. And then we're going to close out. And you're going to be angry when you hear this. You're going to be angry. I want to push the phone app. Those of you all that are here looking, I want you to go to our phone app. I want you to look at it. I want to push this just for a second because you're going to get notifications. You want the phone app. You want to download it. I'll be right back. So let me tell you, what happened. And it made me so angry. The they call it the recidivism rate. When you come out of jail, let's say 100 people come out of jail and 75 go back into jail. And they call that the recidivism rate. The recidivism rate, that's the word, recidivism. So if 75%, and you know who's majority in the jail system, if the recidivism rate is 75%, that means if 100 people come out of jail, 75% of those people, which is 75, is going to go back into jail. So therefore, the recidivism rate is high. The recidivism rate is high because of things like on applications after you've done your time. I mean, if you get 5 years, once you do your 5 years, you should be set free. You should not have to tell anybody about anything. So who passed those laws? Big boxes. What I mean by big boxes, your Home Depots, and I'm not calling nobody out. I'm just trying to tell you what I mean by big boxes. Your Rooms to Go, your major corporations, those are what we call big boxes. Some of your big boxes have paid lobbyists to go in and get laws passed, such as 3 strikes and you're out. So this is what they say: if you do a crime, that's strike 1, and depending on what kind of crime it is, we're not going to give you a hard time. You do it 3 times, and you're going to get a minimum mandatory of, it could be 5 months in jail. And there's a law called 1020 life in some states. They call it 1020 life to give it a fancy name. If you commit a crime with a weapon, or you insinuate you have a gun or something like that, it's a minimum of 10 years. If you use that weapon, it could be 20. If you injure somebody with that weapon, it could be up to 20. If you fire a weapon, it could be a little bit higher. It could be life. And that's why they call it 1020 life. Will corporations push those laws? Now your question would be, why would a corporation push a law like that? Well, here's why. The number 1 industry in the state of Florida is not oranges, it's prisons. And that's probably what's conducive in your state as well. The number 1 industry. Now, it's not listed as an industry, but it is a money maker. Prisons are money makers. They make money. So the number 1 industry in Florida that makes more money than any other business in Florida is prisons. Here's why. Private corporations build the prisons. Government says we don't have to build them because we're going to privatize them. And they will build the prisons under certain conditions. They can tell the government, you use your personnel to run the prison, or you let us use ours, or we'll use a hybrid, part ours, part yours. And the government has to pay through your tax dollars for those individuals being inside of the prison. They have to pay. So for every prisoner, it could be as much as, I don't know, $20,000 a year just to house that one prisoner. So if you got a bunch of, and now that's 20,000. Now a big box can come in and say, can we be a part of your prison reform system? Your prison, check this out, your prison reform system. Now, this is a little flashlight I have. This is a little LED light. Don't matter what brand it is, but it's a little flashlight. And it says, made in the USA. More than likely, this was made in prison. So, how much did they pay that prisoner to put this together? Prisoners get paid for doing labor, like putting pots together, toasters together, coffee pots together, computer boards together, furniture frames, stuff like this. They get paid for doing that. So a lot of the things that you see put together was done by a prisoner, especially when it says made in the USA. How much do they pay that prisoner? $5 a week, $20 for the month. I kid you not. I kid you not. I kid you not. Look up something on YouTube called prison labor. Prison labor. Look it up. It will make you sick on your stomach. So these same corporations went to the lawmakers to get them to pass laws, right? Get them to pass laws that certain things, certain laws like crack cocaine, put them in jail. And if they do it 3 times, they get a life sentence of 10 years. Seriously, I kid you not. These are laws that were pushed by the Democrats, by the way. Okay, so you see why I don't jump on nobody's political party, because I know too much. I know what they did. Okay, so and I'm not a conspiracy. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is reality, people. This is something that actually happened. It happens all the time, and it does happen. I kid you not. It happens. So when things like that happen, okay, then if it only has an impact on one group of people, then those things you have to push. Because how can your people ever elevate? How can they get better? How can you teach them? Because there's a lot of people coming to the knowledge of the truth of who they are, but when they get out, they're going to end up going back to the way they were. And I'm telling you, it makes you angry. So you got everybody sitting and saying, oh, let's have a kumbaya party and let's help because the police are doing things bad. I guarantee you not one lawmaker is going to bring up the fact that there is the slave labor in prisons and what a prisoner gets paid. And I'm going to show you something, just so you don't see that it's me. I kid you not. I'm going to show you something. Y'all give me, what time is it? It's 10:17. I'm going to be off in 10 minutes. We're going to do this. Y'all ride with me for a minute. Ride with me for a minute. I'm going to show you something. Just ride with me for a minute. This ain't me. I kid you not. Just ride with me for 1 minute here. We're going to go to a couple of Google searches. I kid you not. You need to know this. And this is why I say certain issues, I don't sit back and how much does a prisoner get paid? Wow, it went up a little bit. Okay, so watch this. I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna show you how much a prisoner gets paid. Okay? So let's go here. Let's watch this. Listen to this. Let's look at this. The average of the minimum daily wages paid to incarcerated workers for non-industry prison jobs is 86 cents, down from 93 cents reported in 2001. So in 2001, it was 86. Now let's look at this now. The average minimum. So now that was in 2001, or maybe it's changed. Let's continue to read. The average maximum. Okay, so you got a minimum and a maximum. Listen to this. So the minimum they get paid is 86 cents a day. It used to be 93 cents in 2001. The average maximum, see, this is why we have to read this. The maximum daily wage for the same prison job has declined more significantly from $4.73 a day in 2001 to $3.45 today. I just want you to see where this is, okay? Now, what type of jobs? Let's put in here, what corporations, which corporations, let me bring this back on me so y'all ain't got to worry about all that. Which corporations use prison labor?
Hey, yo, Heinz feet.
What's that? I need you to pray for me. Praise God. Father God, in the name of Jesus.
Yeah, I need them to pray for me. I was typing it, it didn't go through. Which prison corporations, hold on for 1 second, use prison labor? Now, I'm going to bring this up. I want you to look at this. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so you can read it. I got to make it wider so we can read it. Okay. Make it a little bit wider on this side so we can read it. Okay, so let's read it. Where are we here? So I can lock it so it don't go anywhere. Here we go. Many private businesses have used prison labor, such as Victoria's Secret, Starbucks, and Microsoft. Even immigrants waiting deportation proceedings were forced to do janitorial and clerical work for $1 a day at the private detention facilities where they were held, according to recent litigation. I want you to look at this, okay? A list of the 50. Let's go to this. Let's go to this. And I want to make it smaller. I think I can make it smaller. I'm not for sure. Just so y'all can see it. And this is why I say you may not have to vote, but you can't just sit down either, because this is, let's see if we can make this in here right. Because I want to bring it all in here. I want to bring it all in here. Okay? We need to bring this all in here, everybody. So you can just see. Because I guarantee you, nobody out there is trying to do anything about this that's out there marching. You want to march about something? This is something to march about right here. I can't get it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to read what little bit I can, okay, you all? So we can see what little bit we can. Here we go. Every day in the United States, over 1 million people go to work and make a little as 2 cents an hour or something not at all. They're forced to produce and get punished if they refuse. Today, private corporations are profiting off of a new form of slavery. The private prison labor industry is growing at a rapid rate in America, and legislation exists to continually increase the sentencing of prisoners. The corporations that employ prisoners will surprise you. The problem isn't limited to brands with bad reputations. Starbucks, Victoria's Secrets, Whole Foods, Nintendo, all have used prison workers to increase corporate profits. And if you've complained about bad customer service, you might be surprised to learn that many call centers are staffed by inmates. Okay? So I'm not going to go all the way into it. I'm not going to dive all the way into it. Here's my point. When we say we don't want to get involved, I just want to learn the truth. This is when you get involved. And I think I saw the same thing in the chat room. When it benefits our people and when it benefits humanity and affects us, you may have to go out and vote on certain issues. Because mess like this will just blow your mind. So now you create bad laws to increase the recidivism rate. Okay? So everybody's out there marching. Everybody's out there. Let's come together. Let's have a kumbaya party. All ethnic groups, let's get together. We need to change the policies in America. You know what policy you need to change? That policy right there. You want to help? You want to change? Change that policy. Because those same corporations, instead of paying pennies a day and making all of the billions of dollars they make, they could open up a factory. You know what happened to Chicago on the South Side? There were lots of jobs and factories in Chicago on the South Side. Lots. You know what they did? Prison labor. They would rather than pay you $10 to $15 an hour, they would rather pay you in prison and learn that same job. And check this out. Go into prison, work for that same company for 5 years. Work for Starbucks for 5 years. Come out of prison and see if you can put on your application that you've been working for Starbucks for the past 5 years. See if you can put down you've been working for Whole Foods for the past 5 years. See if you can put down you've been working for Walmart and all the other big boxes that are paying people pennies a day. See if you can put that on your application that I've worked for Walmart for the past 5 years. No, the moment you put down that you've been arrested, Walmart would not hire you, but they will hire you in prison. Starbucks and Nintendo is not going to hire you, but they will hire you in prison. But they're not going to give you a job. Why? Because you put on the application that you've been arrested before. You've done prison time. You don't think we got a problem and we should speak up? Yeah, certain things we need to speak up on. Certain things we gotta, so, yes, I can accept that comment, Pastor. Do we know the truth, Pastor? We need to know the truth. Listen, understand something about me. There's a lot I know, I don't talk about. I would rather teach. I did that for 30 years. I would rather teach. I would rather teach the truth. I would rather teach the gospel. This is more important for me. But you all know, every now and then, I got to keep it real. Every now and then, I got to go there, okay? And this is one of those times, okay? And I meant this information is current, not old. Cherry Wynn, let's see, Cherry said something, I want to go back. She says, this is as of September 2019, not even a year of data. She may have brought up something else too. She says, Michigan, Walmart, Target, Boeing, American Airlines, Starbucks. Thank you, Cherry. Cherry Twin 23. Yes. And she says this is not even, what she's saying is this is as of September 2019. Not even a year of data. This is how recent this is. But see if you can go get a job on American Airlines coming out of the jail. No, your application won't even get approved because you're going to put down that you did some time. And I guarantee you, this is why when I look at those politicians and when I look at, I'm going to call out the names. Let me just call out the names. Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, all of these people, they're getting paid. They're getting paid by some of these same corporations. Okay? So they're not going to say nothing. They're not going to, you know what the number one policy change that they need to be talking about? This right here. This is what they should be talking about. You know what they should be, we need to change. We need to change the way we're policing in America. No, you need to change how a person can get a job and who brings in prison labor and make it a law. If you make somebody do something in prison, if you want to use them for cheap labor, when they come out, give them a job. Guarantee them a job when they come out so that they can be productive citizens. So they can then don't have to worry about stealing and robbing, and they can come and learn the truth. We can get more people in the kingdom then. No, really. If that's what you want to do. I told you I'm not going to go past 11:30. You know what? Tomorrow night, we're going to bring out some statistics. It's okay to learn the Sabbath, the feast day, but we're going to do some Hebrew awakening tomorrow night. And now you're going to see why. We're going to do something tomorrow night. We're going to go into this tomorrow night. Y'all tune in early tomorrow night. This is going to be our subject of discussion. What we're talking about now. Okay? What now? What next? Now what happened? We're going to go into this. And we're going to go into, and you know what? I'm going to go down that road. A lot of people going to get bamboozled out there in that kumbaya party that they have. Because the real issues is this stuff. This is real issue. And nobody's telling, ain't nobody brought Colin Kaepernick, one of my favorite quarterbacks, back on TV and say, you know what, Colin, we're sorry. The NFL and everybody wants to take a knee. Everybody wants to take a knee now. But you kick a man out of the stage and the platform. Let me stop. We're going to go there tomorrow night. Peace. We're going to go there tomorrow night. Y'all need to tune in. Listen, share this. Tomorrow night, I'm going to dive in deep. I'm going to go like I'm in the college, like I'm in the classroom with you all. We're going to go in deep tomorrow night. Tune in. And we're going to do it early. We're going to do it early. We're going to do it for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We're going to do it early. We're going to go in deep tomorrow night. And you know what? I'm going to put it on the line. I'm going to call it out. I'm going to show you all some things that's just going, we're going to go in deep. Because I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say it right now. Everybody out there in these kumbaya parties out there hugging and getting coronavirus, they are getting bamboozled. You want to make a change? Change what happens in the prison system. Change the recidivism rate. Quit having laws in place that has an adverse impact on people of color that goes inside jails. You want to pay them how much money a week? And how many computer parts are they put together? I'm trying to get off. My smoke is, y'all don't see the smoke coming out. Smoke coming out of my ears right now. Let me hear from y'all in the chat room. Smoke is coming out of my ears right now. Y'all don't see it, but it's coming out. We're going to do this tomorrow night. I just subscribe and click the alert button too. Tomorrow night, we're going to go there. I'm telling you, we're going to go there deep tomorrow night. We're going to go there deep, deep, deep. And I'm an expert. I am what they call a subject matter expert. I'm a subject matter expert when it comes to this Word of God, but when it comes to this societal issues, as a adjunct professor, I am a subject matter expert that worked for the government for over 30 years. We're gonna go in deep tomorrow night. We're gonna go in deep. So let's deal with this tomorrow night. Let's touch in. And for that very reason, I would even go out there. We need to make sure that these politicians and these kumbaya people are out there. Make sure you deal with the real issues on the table. The recidivism rate, jobs, bring those jobs back in the community, bring them back on the south side of Chicago, bring those jobs back on the inner city and give people jobs. Don't give us reparations. We don't want reparations. We don't want reparations. We want jobs. We want you to bring those factories back, Nike, from China, and put them back in the inner city where people can have jobs and quit doing cheap labor and cheap prison labor so the people can get back. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow night. Peace, all of you all. I got to get out of here because I'm just going to get upset in here. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to get upset. Okay, we're going to go with 3 Before Joy tonight. These ladies always sing an awesome song. We're going to go with 3 Before Joy. And we're also going to go with my brother he's got a new song out. We're going to play a little bit of him, and then we're going to get out of here, and I will see you all tomorrow night. Don't forget to tune in, same place, same time, same channel. We would love to see and hear from you. So we're going to be looking for you. And I want to look for my brother Nico. Where's Nico? I want to bring Nico in here. My spoken word guy. Gonna play a little bit of him also. And we're not gonna give y'all too much music because I want y'all to get some sleep and then come back tomorrow night. Is that okay? That's what we're gonna do. So you all can come back tomorrow night. Peace and blessings to you all. We will talk soon.
Love, as I have loved you. What does that really mean? Sometimes it's hard to understand what Jesus meant when he said it, because in the world that we live in, people love us based on circumstance or preference. Like, if I like what you like, you'll like me. Or if I do what you do, you'll accept me. Yet the one that should have rejected me because I wasn't at all like him didn't. Matter of fact, in spite of my imperfections, failures, and flaws, Christ saw something in me that was worth reconciling back to him. So it's no longer I who live, but he who lives through me, and gives me the courage to fearlessly love you, despite what you do to me, or how you treat me. at my job, at my school, at my church, even in my own family. So let's not view each other in light of our earthly stature, but more as Christ's ambassadors, showing the world that we who are once blinded to this love have tasted this love and lived to share his love. I believe this, and only this, will help put an end to hate and animosity. It ain't no wishful thinking, man. It's his philosophy. And prayerfully, it's our democracy. That if we did, it would change everything.
Sometimes I think we fail to recognize the weight of Christ's sacrifice because of the state that sin puts us in. If we could see how dirty and how unworthy we are in comparison to how pure and how holy he has always been. If the wages of sin is death and I rebel against God one time, there's this mortal debt that I owe. And if God has set his face against sin, then that makes me his eternal foe. And our good God is actively fighting against anything that is bad, evil, or wrong. So what side of that board does your sin leave you on? And the wrath of God is coming, and there is no amount of good deed that will ever save when you know that deep down you can't even get your heart to behave. You still struggle with your addictions to alcoholism and pornography. You're not satisfied with your singleness. You're tempted to step outside your marriage, and you don't even want to obey your parents. It's like no matter how good I try to be, I still find sin inside of me. And in our sin, we reject God and we smack him in the face, and we find anything else to take his place, and we stack sin on top of sin, on top of sin, on top of sin. But God in his mercy matches that with grace upon grace upon grace upon grace. When he would have been well within his means to leave you alone in the first place, to abandon you a long time ago, but God is not a man to demand what you would owe. Instead, he sends the King of this world as perfection, the great I am that I am, without spot or blemish, to become the perfect sacrificial lamb. And the nails of your rebellion were pounded into his hands and his feet on the cross. Our spiritual freedom don't come free. Yes, it comes at a cost. And the Son of God was crucified because of the sins that you chose. But 3 days later, my Savior, he rose, just to prove to the devil that death can't bother the author of life, and to show that the mess that man makes, Christ makes it right. Now, we all know we're not perfect, but God stands up and says, no, my child, I still think you're worth it. Can we pause for a moment and think about what that means? That the King of Kings would love you more than anything. He says, I will give you my life so you can understand my love and how I have loved you from the very beginning. That's why I'm sending my son even though you keep sinning. That's why believers get excited at the mention of a third day. Because our sins were flattened by the boulder that he rolled away. And the enemy is big mad because I ain't living the life that he made for me. And Jesus' death means new life that he gave to me. I was saved to see that death ain't got no grave for me. So when Jesus said it was finished, his work diminished the sins of my past through something that I can never add to. And a Jesus that died for my sins means that I will never have to. And if you're tracking with what I'm saying, then there's a question I gotta ask you. Do you believe what Jesus did for you, or have you allowed it to wash right over your head? Because the truth of Easter means that when you should have died, Jesus took that for you instead. Salah.